Today, the Daily Mail in crisis over Prince Harry's allegations, specifically involving two of their royal stars, Rebecca English and Charlotte Griffiths, in court this week. Remember, one of those revelations was that Harry had actually swapped phone numbers with Ms. Griffiths, who is now operating as a propagandist for Harry in the Mail on Sunday newspaper, where she is now the editor-at-large. Of course, what's incredibly difficult for this newspaper, and why I think their coverage is now corrupted and cannot be trusted, is that they are at the heart of these revelations, yet they are unable to report them and have to try and pretend it's business as usual. Of course, Rebecca English and Charlotte Griffiths are two of the stars of the Daily Mail's Palace Confidential show, which has now been left in the unenvious position of trying to cover this story without covering this story. They did so by forcing Rebecca English and Charlotte Griffiths to stay out of the studio this week. So there is a huge amount of fallout from the court case. We are going to give you, by the way, the coverage that you simply cannot get in the mainstream media because, as I say, they are corrupted. They are involved in this case. We will do so with independent, that is the key word, royal YouTube sensation, according to Taz. But Tash, first, I've just got to take you through this very odd episode of Palace Confidential. This is how the host kicked things off.
And joining me today is a double dose of Richard. What a treat for you. We have Richard Kay, the Daily Mail's senior editor-at-large, and Richard Eden, the paper's diary editor. Welcome to you both. Now, for the Rebecca English superfans, and I know you're out there, she might not be in the studio, but she's in Bristol with some guy called Prince William. But she's sending us a couple of video reports, which we will share in just a moment.
Okay, now, of course, that was completely disingenuous. Rebecca English was one of the main features of the Prince Harry trial. And her superfans will, of course, know that. And Joe Alvin went on to read a very strict statement about the trial without any reference to the fact that Charlotte Griffiths and Rebecca English were a big part of it. Watch.
Let's start off this episode with a note that Prince Harry is currently in the UK for a privacy trial against Associated Newspapers, which is the publisher of the Daily Mail and the owner of this channel. Prince Harry has been back in the UK this week giving evidence in the witness box at the High Court. Now, the Duke of Sussex and 6 others are suing Associated Newspapers, the publisher of the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday. They allege illegal news gathering activities from some of the newspaper's journalists. When the group launched their case in 2022, they also alleged Mail journalists ordered burglaries of their homes, but this allegation was struck out by the judge.
So it's almost like North Korea, right? It's like, this is what you're allowed to say and do not go off script. And then what was most bizarre is that without having mentioned the fact that Prince Harry was directly accusing Rebecca English of unlawful activity, without mentioning the fact that Rebecca English's 2 private conversations in the past with Prince Harry were raised as part of this trial and were utterly central to the trial, Joe Alvin then had to move on and say, and now here's Rebecca English reporting. I mean, it's nuts. What?
Continues. Now, let's get back to my panel because it's been a busy week of royal engagements with William and Catherine, particularly busy. Here's Rebecca English to tell us more.
Today, Prince William is off to Bristol in the southwest of England to highlight local technology and innovation. I'm off there to cover the visit as well, which is why I'm not in the studio filming today. In fact, I need to get moving and catch my train.
Oh, Tash. Seriously, I mean, look, I'm not being a dick. Like, I do understand it's a very difficult position. But I think this is why you can't trust the mainstream media anymore when it comes to royal reporting. The royal rota is totally corrupted. It really is. And even though I don't believe that for the same reasons as Prince Harry does, it is this little club. It doesn't work. You don't get the truth. And fundamentally, I think this is now an impossible situation because how on earth can you trust a word that Rebecca English or Charlotte Griffiths reports when you know that there's a court case going on where Prince Harry is specifically trying to destroy their careers?
I mean, I really would have had a lot more respect if they'd have just said that due to both, our usual regular stars of the show, both being embroiled and being called into this current court case, they're obviously not here in the studio. I think people would respect it a little bit more. But to just say they're not there, well, Charlotte, I didn't watch it myself, but she hasn't had a mention yet. But Rebecca's off coloring Catherine and William, and that's why she's not there. It just makes people think, well, you're literally covering up something that's so obvious to anybody that is a genuine fan of Rebecca English's reporting. They know it, and you're thinking, well, why are you trying to cover up the fact that it's being reported every single day. Although I must admit, Harry's probably really peeved there's been so much coverage of the Beckhams because, he would have had a lot more
Yes.
coverage in recent days. This has really put a spanner in the works, hasn't it, for them?
I know. I bet even though he's advising Brooklyn, he was like, Brooklyn, mate, come on. You just needed to wait a couple of days. Like, wait till my trial's over.
How dare you?
Look,
Steal my thunder.
I completely agree with what you're saying, Tash. And this is the thing. They're not in an impossible situation. This is a civil trial. So if Rebecca English and Charlotte Griffiths truly have nothing to hide, go into that studio and tell the damn truth. Because what I am sick of, Tash, is the mainstream media covering things up, not talking about what's really going on. Seriously, I think it's really important. We need to hear from them. What were the circumstances, Charlotte Griffiths, where you swapped phone numbers with Harry? Was that romantic? Because he claims, Tash, that he at that point didn't know that she was a journalist. So if he's swapping numbers, then was it a romantic connection? Does that now mean that she should declare that in her reporting? That's the first thing. Then, of course, we come to Facebook and the fact that Charlotte Griffiths claims that she was communicating with someone called Mr. Mischief, who she believed was Harry. Well, Harry's saying, no, that's not me. Now, can we see these messages, Charlotte? Why have you kept this secret for so long? You're now being given all of these stories about Prince Harry, and you've turned into a propagandist for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle lately. Again, Tash, we've got to ask the question, is she doing that? And this is just a question. I'm not judging her reporting necessarily, but is she doing that because she was hoping for a softer ride in court? She was hoping for the fact that Harry would say, oh, well, she's doing our bidding these days. She's writing all of these positive stories about us. Now, he showed no mercy in court, and I think it is a really fundamental misunderstanding of Harry. He wants to destroy you. And the thing about this, Tash, is I have personal experience of it, but I've never hidden what Harry tried to do to me. He tried to destroy me. He tried to destroy my life for reporting the truth. He tried to drag me into court for my reporting. But I had nothing to hide, Tash, because my reporting of Megxit and all of those stories was perfectly legal. What he was claiming about me was wrong. So Rebecca English and Charlotte Griffiths, what are you afraid of? If you did nothing wrong, what are you afraid of? And there is a fundamental question that Rebecca English does have to answer, which is, why were you sending these emails about trying to blag from British Airways Chelsea Davies' seat on the plane? What's your explanation? Come on, let's hear it. So I'm sorry, Tash. I think Harry's evidence was awful and terrible and self-serving, and I think he's a total narcissistic, horrible force. But at the same time, I think the Mail trying to hide away these reporters, it's not going to work. We live in a new world now. If you've got nothing to hide, get into that goddamn studio and tell us what went down, because there's a lot we actually need to know before those reporters can ever be trusted again.
I mean, I do wonder how far up the food chain it goes at A&L, because we have discussed before on Outspoken where the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday is definitely in a coordinated effort to often come together and to trash Catherine and William. And, there does seem to be more of an organized effort from the mainstream media. And, maybe they're getting their orders from high above. That's the one great thing, obviously, with your show. You don't have those constraints that they probably do from management, really. So there is a lot where people are, it's not just obviously royal news, it's everything every single day that we're seeing. People are losing trust in the mainstream media because of websites like X, because we can see what is happening with our own eyes, real footage. And then we're seeing what the mainstream newspapers are gaslighting us over everything. So you think to yourself, if you're doing it over the small stuff, you're probably doing it over the big stuff. And people's distrust is increasing every single day with the mainstream media. And then they do something like this over something as simple to just say, because Rebecca is involved in the court case, she cannot make an appearance. But to try and make out that it's because she's busy covering, that's why she's not in there. And the same with Charlotte Griffiths. It just shows that they're trying to cover it up in a way. What are you covering up? It makes people ask questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, I've always been very honest about this case, Tash. Everyone knows Harry tried to destroy me, right? He doesn't like me. He called me a sad little man in his book. But actually, I'm a innocent party in all of this. I have never, ever done anything illegal in my reporting, full stop. And I've always, I swore on oath at the Leveson inquiry. So I am looking at this case independently. And I do think the Mail are in trouble. Not about all of the stories, actually. I think a lot of the stories absolutely came from legitimate sources. And I think Harry's lying about a lot of it. But not the seat blagging. I'm just not convinced, because Rebecca English says she doesn't remember the email being sent. Well, I don't see how that stacks up as a defense, given the email has actually been presented. And as Tom Sykes revealed earlier in the week, it's only been presented because the Sun revealed the email in discovery for another case. Anyway, let me just show you, because we've got our AI Prince Harry who came into action this week, Tash, so we could sort of show people from inside the courtroom, given we have these ludicrous rules. What really was it like? Yeah, because we have these rules, you can't film in court and all of that in the UK. So this is what he had to say about Rebecca English first up.
I put it to you that you had a good relationship with Miss English.
No, I did not have a good relationship with Miss English, quite the opposite. I was probably advised to say thank you to her. It was a pretty hard thing. We were forced to work with them. We had to have some kind of relationship with them, knowing who they are and knowing full well the kind of stories they had written about me and how they have commercialized my private life.
Why didn't you complain to Miss English about the articles being written?
Hindsight is a beautiful thing, Mr. White.
And then this was the exchange about Charlotte Griffiths' watch.
I had no idea she was a journalist. I never used the name Mr. Mischief.
Did you meet her in Ibiza?
I don't think that can be right. I don't believe I have ever been to Ibiza other than with my now wife. My social circles were not leaky. I want to make that absolutely clear. I would have to cut contact with this person.
But Tash, at that point, the Mail's KC, Mr. White, put it to Prince Harry and told him, you added one of the Mail's journalists, Charlotte Griffiths. Now, we believe Charlotte Griffiths is going to give evidence, so hopefully we'll be provided evidence of this, as a Facebook friend in 2011. That's when he claimed that Harry was using the name Mr. Mischief, which Harry obviously denied. But then he did acknowledge that he gave Charlotte Griffiths his phone number, adding, that was when I was unaware of who she was. He insisted that they had met just once at a weekend party. So I think this is where a lot of the evidence started to fall down, because it's like, you're saying all of your friends knew that she was a journalist, and of course they wouldn't say anything to her, but then the first time you met her, you give her your phone number. So I don't want people to think I'm immediately saying I don't believe Charlotte Griffiths and Rebecca English. This is an ongoing trial. I await their evidence. But it's very, very interesting that Harry did acknowledge that he gave Charlotte his number and then says, oh, but I didn't know she was a journalist. Okay, then, well, was it romantic?
This segment immediately exposes the elephant in the room. Prince Harry is back in the UK accusing associated newspapers of illegal activity, and the very journalists implicated are still presented as trusted royal commentators. That alone should stop viewers in their tracks. The outrage here isn't Harry. It's the media silence. If Rebecca English and Charlotte Griffiths truly have nothing to hide, why are they shielded from scrutiny while still shaping royal narratives? The refusal to address their involvement doesn't protect credibility, it destroys it. This is the moment viewers realize, this story isn't just about Harry vs the press, it's about the press protecting itself. Palace Confidential is framed as a royal analysis show yet suddenly becomes Palace Confidential, except this bit. Rebecca English and Charlotte Griffiths are quietly removed from the studio, while viewers are fed a half-truth explanation that collapses under basic scrutiny. Not mentioning their direct involvement in the trial isn't an oversight. It's editorial choreography. This is where trust fractures, because if the show can't be honest about its own conflicts of interest, what else is being curated? The most damning moment isn't what's said, it's what's deliberately not said. A scripted disclaimer about the trial avoids naming the journalists at the heart of it. Then, seconds later, viewers are expected to accept Rebecca English reporting as normal. That's not journalism. That's narrative laundering. And viewers aren't stupid. The attempt to normalize the situation, Rebecca is busy with Prince William, insults the audience's intelligence. This isn't transparency. It's misdirection. The problem isn't that journalists are involved in a trial. The problem is pretending they're not, while continuing to platform them as impartial voices. At this point, the question shifts from what did Harry do, to what is the media afraid of? This is where things turn explosive. Harry admits he swapped phone numbers with Charlotte Griffiths while claiming he didn't know she was a journalist. That raises unavoidable questions. Why swap numbers at all? What was the nature of that interaction? And should that past relationship be declared in her reporting? These aren't accusations. They're basic ethical questions, and the silence around them is deafening. Charlotte Griffiths claims she communicated online with someone she believed was Harry. Harry denies it was him. So where are the messages? If they exist, show them. If they don't, explain why. The longer this goes unanswered, the worse it looks, especially when Griffiths is now accused of acting as a soft-touch commentator toward Harry and Meghan. That doesn't mean guilt. But it absolutely demands transparency. This is where credibility really starts bleeding.
It's all in the little details, isn't it? But Harry, the problem is, again, with him, I don't trust anything that he says
No.
because he's been proven time and time again. He's
Totally.
lied in court. We know that he was giving information to the Finding Freedom authors. We know
Yes.
that Harry and Meghan have been briefing people in the media from the moment that Meghan got her toe behind the palace gates. There were more leaks happening from the moment she arrived, even when they were just dating, than what we had ever seen, especially about Catherine. And I'm sorry, I just do not believe that Harry hasn't been feeding stuff to the media over the years. This is why Harry's always got such an easier ride, I would say, than William, who has always kept his cards close to his chest, even more so now that he protects his wife and his children. And that's why the media go so hard on him. It's like revenge. But Harry's their boy. So I do believe that Harry did give his phone number out. I do believe that Harry probably was Mr. Mischief. Why not? It's his truth, the whole truth,
Yeah.
and nothing but the truth.
Well, I mean,
but it's never the actual truth.
I was always told, Tash, because remember, I was reporting for years and years on the British royal family, and I was always told that Harry did have this secret Facebook account and did communicate with people, including journalists. So there you go. But hopefully Charlotte Griffiths has the receipts. That's all I hope. Now, of course, you raised the children and the fact that he claims to be trying to protect the children. But I mean, Tash, surely his hypocrisy has been totally exposed when it comes to Archie and Lily this week. And Tom Sykes summed it up on the Royalist Substack this way, writing, Harry rails at the commodification of his own childhood as his kids are commodified. I just thought it was the perfect headline, actually, because it does sum up the sort of total hypocrisy of his case. And let me just take you through some of the key arguments, Tash, and I'll get you to respond and see if you agree. So Tom Sykes writes, Prince Harry's appearance in court this week has, for me at least, reignited questions about privacy and hypocrisy. As my readers know, I have long argued that Harry and Meghan's active decision to make their own children part of their highly visible public and commercial narrative is a mistake and opens them up to charges of hypocrisy. That charge, I think, has new resonance in the light of Harry's evidence. At the heart of his emotional case was his argument that he never had agency over how his life was used by the media when he was younger, describing himself as having been commercialised without consent. In his witness statement and under questioning from his barrister David Sherborne, Harry described giving evidence as a repeat of the past, a recurring and traumatic experience. He told the court, "I have never believed my life is open season to be commercialised by these people. My life has been commercialised in this way since I was a teenager." A day earlier, Brooklyn Beckham, a friend of Meghan and Harry, broke the internet with a statement expressing strikingly similar grievances to Harry about growing up without control over his own narrative, saying that for his entire life his parents had controlled press coverage and that public expressions of perfect family life on social media had been a constant fake and performative fixture. The day before that, Harry's wife, Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, posted a series of images and videos of their children, Archie and Lily, at a zoo and swimming in a pool with Doria. Critics like me argue that these images, even when faces are partially obscured or showed in three-quarter profile, are part of the construction of a broader commercial brand, that Archie and Lily cannot meaningfully consent to such exposure. While Meghan has sought to suggest that some content is initiated by the children themselves, with one recent video credited to, quote, "our daughter," it's obvious that at that age, consent is illusionary. And any and all decisions about public visibility of the children rest entirely with the parents. The result is that Harry, who in court was attributing much of his lifelong trauma to being commercialised without consent by a brand institution masquerading as a family, is now presiding over an eerily similar process involving his children. Archie and Lily are, I would argue, the most famous young children in the world, with details of their lives, their titles, and even pre-birth family disputes about them forming part of a carefully managed public story curated by Meghan and Harry. This has fueled allegations of hypocrisy that have complicated public sympathy for Harry's case. While there is widespread recognition that what he endured as a teenager and young man, from phone hacking to the harassment of girlfriends, which included the tracking of their flights and even onboard seating plans, was creepy and disgusting, critics are entitled to question why those experiences have not led to a more restrictive approach to his own children's exposure. And Tash, honestly, I think, especially given that all of this social media material was put out by Meghan just as Harry left the country to fly to the United Kingdom for this trial, I think Tom Sykes has hit the nail on the head. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, everybody can see the utter hypocrisy when it comes to their children, even with them. I know they've dropped it now because they've got bored of it, but the online safety for children, and then they're constantly posting images of their children. And let's be honest, these images are not of their children even dressed up smart. A lot of them are these kids running around and they're in their pajamas. You know, the little girl doesn't look like she's had her hair brushed. And I'm not criticizing them as parents, but they're presenting their children to the world in private. These are private images that should remain private. The little girl in the swimming pool, she and Doria don't look like that they knew that they were being filmed. That to me is behaving no different to the paparazzi. You know, that is invading their privacy. And these children do not have a choice in any of what Meghan is putting online. These kids are going to get older and then they are going to have the exact same thing that Harry had. They're going to realize that all of these people all around the world have seen images of them, making cookies in that shelter, wasn't it, that was meant to be for charity, them running around in their pajamas. These are intimate images of your children that should be kept for family photo albums. And I do find it completely hypocritical with everything that Harry has always said about his children, and even with making them have their titles. You can look at the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, what they've done with their two children, Lady Louise and the James Earl of Wessex now, because he's got his father's title. They were allowed to choose when they turned 18. And that is giving them a choice. And both of them have made the decision that they do not want the prince and princess titles, despite them living in the UK and their parents being senior working royals. Harry and Meghan have forced that decision on their children. They are now growing up with a title of a prince and princess in a country that fought a war to remove to remove the monarchy. Those children are going to stand out more. And I also believe by making them a prince and princess, it makes them a bigger target. So overall, Harry and Meghan are making their children a bigger target for security concerns, but also the media and the paparazzi by playing these stupid games that they do with hiding their faces.
Indeed. And Tash, I mean, you talk about the charity situation and regards to the Parents Network, which I think they've completely got away with in the mainstream media. There's been no real examination. And there is a growing theory, Tash. I don't call it a conspiracy theory at all, because I think it is really backed up in fact, that actually one of the reasons why they were completely prepared to just totally get rid. Oh, here's a year's money and see you later. We've got nothing to do with you. We don't even want our name on your tin anymore, was because Meghan knew that staying involved in the Parents Network while actively pimping out her own children on social media was a car crash waiting to happen. Now, I think there's some real suggestion that that is the case, because of course, Tash, when the Parents Network was first launched, and do you remember when there was the big CBS interview and it was Harry and Meghan's first big joint appearance on TV since Oprah, and they brought in all of the parents who had terribly and emotionally lost their children to suicide. At that point, Tash, Meghan hadn't defied her husband and hadn't started posting Archie and Lily on social media. That changed last February, nearly a year ago, when she was sent home from the Invictus Games. She often posts her children when Harry is not in the country or when there's been some type of dispute between them. And so I just think it didn't fit with the narrative that she is trying to create. Now, of course, there are also lots of financial questions about the fact they just simply do not have the financial backing to run a charity. But I do believe you can't not connect the dots between the two different parts of their lives. And it actually makes the decision even more disgusting, Tash.
No, it does. I mean, how can you throw your weight behind by being a serious contender for people to listen to you about children being safe online when you're posting pictures? Like I said, these children are often in their pajamas. You know, they're not obviously realizing that the world is going to be looking at these images and videos. These aren't just, I don't know, more formal pictures or, taken by a photographer where the children are smiling and dressed up. So they know that these photographs, other people will see them. These are moments when they're just at home with their parents or with the nannies, and Meghan is doing this. And obviously Harry is such a weak man. He just allows his wife to continue, but it is completely at odds by saying that we need to protect children more on the internet whilst you're constantly uploading images. And it doesn't matter that she doesn't show their faces wholly, because we have seen side shots, front shots. You can put the pieces of the puzzle together. Plus, with an interview at Gloria Steinem's house, there just happened to magically be the perfect photograph of Archie and Lily on display perfectly in the background. And I can't help but feel that that was deliberately done. And everybody knows what the kids look like, really. It's just playing these silly games, pretending that they're still somehow protecting them. They're not. They're commoditizing the children. They are using the children now as part of their very own brand.
Yeah, it's not a good thing. It is not a good thing. And that hypocrisy, I think, from the court case is absolutely right to point out. Now, oh my goodness, Tash, fascinating revelations in regards to Meghan, party crashing, the Kardashians, Valentino's funeral. It's all been going on this week, while a lot of attention has been turned to Prince Harry in court. But we're not letting her get away with this.
Rebecca English claims she doesn't remember sending an email, yet the email exists and has been presented in court. "I don't remember" is not a defense. Especially when it involves private travel details of Chelsea Davy. If there's an innocent explanation, say it. If not, the silence speaks louder than any denial. Harry's courtroom performance raises serious doubts. He insists his social circle was not leaky, yet admits to swapping numbers, adding journalists on Facebook, communicating privately under aliases. You can't claim total victimhood while acknowledging behavior that contradicts it. This is where sympathy erodes. Harry rails against the commodification of his childhood, while his own children are increasingly featured in carefully curated social media content. Faces blurred or not, these images are part of a commercial brand narrative. Children cannot consent to branding. That contradiction is now impossible to ignore, especially when the content appears strategically timed around Harry's court appearances. This may be the most devastating part of the entire breakdown. Harry condemns institutions for exploiting him, yet now presides over a system doing eerily similar things to Archie and Lilibet. That doesn't erase his past trauma. But it absolutely complicates his moral authority. The public can recognize two truths at once, and Harry seems unwilling to do so. Giving Archie and Lilibet royal titles in a republic while insisting they need privacy makes them more visible, not less. Compare that with Edward and Sophie's children, who were given a choice at 18. Choice matters. Harry knows that better than anyone. The theory that Meghan distanced herself from the parents' network to avoid scrutiny isn't far-fetched, it's logical. You cannot credibly campaign for online child safety while simultaneously posting intimate, unguarded moments of your own children. That contradiction would have become impossible to defend. This isn't just about Harry, Meghan, or the Daily Mail. It's about media credibility, selective transparency, and audiences being gaslit while watching events unfold in real time. People don't distrust mainstream media because of conspiracy theories. They distrust it because of moments like this. And now I want to hear from you. Do you think the media is protecting its own? Palace Confidential crossed a credibility line? Harry's case exposes real wrongdoing or his own hypocrisy? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Agree or disagree, just back it up. If you value independent commentary, hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and share this video because these conversations are not happening anywhere else.